In a small, quiet village where warm lights glowed behind windows and laughter filled the air, a lonely traveler walked unnoticed. It wasn't a person nor a guest, but a forgotten soul, a stray dog, alone and forgotten, wandered through the village streets searching for something it had never truly known: kindness. Hunger gnawed at its belly, but worse than the hunger was the loneliness. It passed by glowing windows where families gathered, where laughter filled the air, where love lived. But for this little soul, there was no home, no gentle touch, no name to be called by. It sniffed the air, hoping for food, but was met with shouts, scolding, and hands that only pushed it away. With tired paws and a weary heart, the dog finally gave up, curling into itself beneath a wooden bench, trying to escape the night's cold. And as the stars twinkled above, the dog let out a small sigh, one of longing, of quiet acceptance. Perhaps, it thought, this was all life had to offer. Perhaps kindness was only a dream. But in a world where some turn away, there are always a few who choose to stop and see. That night, a little girl stepped outside her home, holding nothing more than a simple piece of bread and a heart full of kindness. She saw what others overlooked, not a filthy, unworthy stray, but a lonely soul in need of love. She didn't call out, didn't rush forward. She simply knelt a short distance away, offering her presence without demand. The dog lifted its head slightly, ears drooping, eyes filled with hesitation. It had been hurt before, many times. It knew that hands could strike just as often as they could give. But something about this child felt different. There was no fear in her gaze, no anger, no rejection, only warmth, only patience. And in that moment, for the first time in a long while, the stray dared to hope. Trust is not given, it is earned, and earning the trust of the broken is the hardest of all. The girl understood this. She didn't move closer, didn't try to touch, didn't force the dog to accept her. She simply placed the bread before it and waited. A moment passed, then another. Hunger battled with fear, and for a long time, fear seemed to be winning. The dog's body was stiff, its muscles tight, prepared to flee at the first sign of danger. But the hunger was relentless. Slowly, cautiously, it inched forward. Every step was hesitant, every movement laced with years of uncertainty. Finally, it took the bread, gulping it down, as if afraid someone might take it away. The girl said nothing, did nothing, only watched, only waited. And in that small, fragile silence, something beautiful began to bloom, a seed of trust, a whisper of hope. That night, something changed. The stray, who had known nothing but loneliness, suddenly found itself faced with a choice: to stay in the darkness it had always known, or to follow the light that had appeared before it. The girl turned to leave, stepping slowly toward home, and for the first time, the dog felt something stir within its heart, a pull, a longing, a curiosity. Would she return? Would she forget? Or was she something different, something real? It took a step forward, then another. And though it kept its distance, its eyes never left her. Step by step, the stray followed. Not because of hunger, not because of need, but because deep down, it wanted to believe. Believe that kindness could be real. Believe that love, true, unconditional love, wasn't just something for others, but something even a stray could have. When the girl returned home, she didn't turn her back on the dog. She didn't think of it as something to leave behind. Instead, she did something simple but powerful. She offered a place, a small corner of her world, where the dog could feel safe. It wasn't much, a blanket, a bowl of water. But to the stray, it was more than enough. It had known cold, hunger, rejection. But now, it knew warmth. The dog sniffed the blanket, unsure at first, its nose catching the scent of kindness woven into the fabric. Slowly, it circled, testing the space, and finally, it laid down. For the first time in what felt like forever, the stray could rest without fear. It didn't have to keep moving. It didn't have to run. And from her window, the girl watched, her heart full. She had given all she could, a simple gesture, and to the dog, that simple gesture meant the world. Morning arrived, bringing with it the promise of something new. The stray, once frightened of the world, now found itself waking up to warmth and safety. As the door creaked open, the girl stepped outside with that same gentle smile she had always worn. This time, she didn't wait. She knelt down, offering her hand once more, not as a stranger, but as a friend. The dog hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. The fear that had gripped it for so long seemed to melt away in the presence of kindness. It sniffed her fingers, and when it found no threat, it pressed its nose against her palm. A soft laugh escaped the girl's lips as she pet the dog for the very first time, and in that moment, something beautiful happened. A bond was formed, a bond built not on food or necessity, but on trust, on love. The stray, who had once known nothing but fear, now knew the joy of belonging, and for the first time, it wagged its tail. Love is not measured in words, but in actions. Days passed, and the bond between the girl and the stray grew stronger with every moment. They became inseparable, two souls who had found in each other what the world had denied them for so long. But love, true love, is tested in the hardest of times. One day, the girl fell ill. She couldn't step outside, she couldn't offer a smile or a kind touch. She could only rest, hidden away behind her door. And as the hours stretched on, the dog waited. Rain began to fall, cold and unforgiving, but the stray didn't leave. It stayed at the doorstep, unwavering. Its fur soaked, its body shivering, but its heart loyal. It didn't understand why she was gone, but it knew one thing. It would wait. It would stay. Through the rain, through the cold, it waited, because love doesn't leave when things get hard. Love stays. And the stray, who had once been abandoned by the world, now understood what it meant to love without conditions. Morning came, and with it, the rain disappeared. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden light over the village. And just as the sun rose, so too did the girl. Weak but smiling, she stepped outside once more. The dog, who had waited all night, leapt to its feet, its heart bursting with joy. It ran to her, its tail wagging with an intensity that could only be born from love. It licked her hands, her face, as if to say, "I missed you. I'm here." The girl knelt down, wrapping her arms around the stray, holding it close. And for the first time in its life, the dog felt something it had never truly known, unconditional love. It wasn't just fed or sheltered. It was loved, simply for being. And as the sun bathed them both in its warmth, the stray closed its eyes, resting its head in her lap. The world that had once been cold and harsh now felt soft, full of light. This was love without conditions, a love given freely, and a love returned tenfold.